Alrighty, folks, we are live. This is George, founder of Solo, and this is the Debt Hotline. We are here with Ben Jackson,
Hello,
who
hello.
is, hello, Ben. He's a co-founder of Upsolve, the largest and most impactful bankruptcy nonprofit in America that has helped more than 13,000 people find freedom from 700 million plus of debt. With a law degree from Chicago Kent College of Law, Ben has personal experience filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy and freeing himself from the burden of debt. That's how things all began for Ben.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for the intro, George. And I feel like every time I talk to you, this goes up. We're at 18,000 people that we've helped file now and $869 million of debt. So we should
Fantastic.
cross a billion by the end of the year, which is really exciting.
1 billion's coming. That's great. Very glad to hear it.
Yeah.
That is a big landmark. I just, uh, I don't know if any bankruptcy law firms are reaching that number
Not even
in
close. I
their
think we're
locality.
14% of pro se filings now.
14% of pro se filings. Wow, incredible. That is great. And Ben, you were telling me right before this episode, right? You were telling me about how bankruptcy has one of the largest returns on investment for
Yeah.
economic mobility, right? Dollar
Yeah.
for dollar.
Yeah, dollar for dollar. So a lot of people think of bankruptcy as sort of like a band-aid solution, right? Like people like Dave Ramsey will talk about it and say like, okay, you get out of debt, but that doesn't solve the underlying problem that caused you to get into debt in the first place. And not only is that sort of like a dangerous and unhelpful idea, but it's also just untrue. The average person that goes through Upsolve to get out of debt ends up $160,000 better off over 10 years. And that's assuming that they had a $36,000 debt load. So you do the math on that, right? Like, not only do you get out of debt $36,000 worth of debt that you had on average with us, there's an extra 120,000 or so that accrues to you through interest that you don't pay, additional job opportunities that you have, the better opportunities that better credit gets you in the future. And so it absolutely does put you in a better financial position. And dollars to dollars, there are almost no economic mobility interventions. So that would include job training, it would include going back to school to get a degree, it would include housing support, things like that, that have as big of an economic impact. So that's reason one, I love bankruptcy. You put me on my soapbox. Reason two is like I personally am a bankruptcy success story. When I was 25, I had a small business that failed. I was one of those super optimistic, super excited entrepreneurs, just like American dream, let's go. And it blew up in my face, as often happens with your first small business. And the problem was it left me with $60,000 in credit card debt. And I was not making anywhere near enough to pay that off. And so it just grew and grew and grew. And it didn't matter how hard I worked, I couldn't get out from under it. Found bankruptcy. 6 months later, my debt was totally gone. And now all the hard work that I'm putting in allowed me to move up the economic chain to the point where I could co-found Upsolve to help other people file as well, go to law school, get a degree, and have a home now. What's this, 8 years later? Great interest rate. I can provide for my family, and that wouldn't have been possible without bankruptcy. So needless to say, I'm a big fan. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have about it.
Fantastic. Love it. Love it. Bankruptcy success story right here. Ben Jackson. Love that. I didn't realize that the bankruptcy was tied to an entrepreneurial venture. It reminds me, I had a friend,
Yeah.
I had a good friend who bought a lightsaber business.
Oh my gosh.
Yep, yep. He told me one day, he's like, dude, I bought
Yeah.
this sick lightsaber business,
Okay.
selling manufacturing make-believe lightsabers. I mean,
Huh.
they're pretty realistic. Lightsabers don't
Yeah.
actually exist, folks. They made
Unfortunately.
made like adult toy lightsabers,
Yeah.
and he was like stoked about it when he bought it. And then like 6 months later, I talked to him again. He's like, dude, don't get an
Yeah.
SBA loan.
Yeah.
Don't get an SBA loan, is what he said.
Yeah.
And he was like real haggard looking. And I think he
Mhm.
eventually ended up selling the thing, offloading it because he
Yeah.
wasn't really able to support the interest rate on that
Yeah.
loan.
It's the beautiful thing about America, honestly, like among many things, but we have built into our law that you can take risks, and if things don't pan out for you, it's okay. Like, you're not screwed forever. You can get out from under that debt. And the president's done it many times. Past presidents have done it. Henry Ford did it. Like, it's a thing that exists in law so that you can take risks, build the economy, and move forward without the like massive consequences of debt saddling you. So if you're thinking about it, don't feel ashamed. Like, it's something that is here for you to take advantage of. I think I lost your audio there. I don't know if you can hear me, George.
It's even in the Constitution, the founding
Yes,
documents
it is.
themselves.
Yeah.
Folks, so this is the debt hotline. If you have a question, call in to the hotline at 801-613-8181. There's lots of people watching live, so act fast. You can call in and chat with me and Ben. Also, to support Ben and Upsolve, if you are being sued for debt right now, you can use the link that is in the chat to respond to the debt lawsuit. That'll support Ben and Upsolve. So we have a first question here from somebody who wrote in ahead of time, from Linda in Minnesota. Linda, if you are watching live, go ahead and let us know in the chat. Linda says, I had good credit, but due to higher interest rates and economy, I have had to default on 4 of my credit cards. Approximately the balance of all of those was $7,500.
Okay.
I still have about 5 major credit cards I'm currently working on,
Okay.
or I'm currently on. I'm on SSDI, so
Mhm.
Social Security Disability Income, medical assistance, and other government programs. My question is, am I better off filing bankruptcy and risking losing all my credit accounts? I live on credit cards because of my small fixed income. I've also closed about 5 of my store credit cards that had no balance at all. Lower credit limits on some others. I had over 20 credit cards. I
Mhm.
feel so bad. I'll pay
Mm.
balances in my financial income.
Mm.
Uh, I'll pay balances if my financial income were to change. So I'd pay it all off if I got more money, basically.
Yeah.
And it says, thank you so much for your free platform. Much appreciated.
Well, yeah. Thanks for the question, Linda. So, if I heard it correctly, I'm not sure if you're on the notes or the call. So, if you are, and I say this wrong, please correct me, George. If I've got this incorrectly, please correct me. It sounded like you have $7,500 in credit card debt, and it didn't sound like you mentioned any other debt. Is that correct?
You said 7,500.
7,500. Okay, got it.
Yeah, yeah.
So your
So
question was,
I think she has a lot more than 7,500,
sure,
but she's defaulted, or I
I
guess
got you.
about
Defaulted on
7,500 worth is
7,500.
charged off. So it's
Okay.
like most delinquent. Yeah.
So your question was, am I better off filing bankruptcy and losing that credit if I need the credit to live on, which is a really hard position to be in. You know, I mentioned a second ago that I had $60,000 in credit card debt, and a lot of that was me living on my credit cards because I couldn't afford to pay my credit cards, which is really a thing. So there are many, many people in your position, Linda. And what we typically see is that when people have below $10,000 in what's called unsecured debt, which means debt from credit cards, personal loans, things that are not tied to property. So this would be like as compared to a car loan or a mortgage. If you have 10,000 or more in that unsecured debt, often bankruptcy can be a good way for you to get out from under that debt. And what will usually happen is that once your bad debt goes away through that bankruptcy, you'll be able to get new credit cards again relatively quickly. I was getting credit card offers in the mail like a week after my bankruptcy wrapped up. I was like, how did you guys even know that I did this? So they're interested in helping you get credit cards, whether that's a secured credit card or a what's called a credit builder loan. That can be an option for you as well, even if you don't have good credit from the bankruptcy. Within about a year of my bankruptcy, my credit went up from 550 to about 650. So you can rebuild it pretty quickly if you know what you're doing, and we can help you with that. So if you only have $7,500 of debt, and I say only because I know that's a lot of debt. Like, it can feel really overwhelming to have that. So only as relates to the way that Upsolve thinks about it. What we typically find is that something like a debt management plan can be a better option if you don't have the money to do something like settle that debt for less than you owe. And what a debt management plan is, they're federally approved programs that have relationships with the banks, the credit card companies, who say, okay, Linda, we know you can't pay all of this off at 30% interest, let's say. We can get it down to 6% interest, which will usually cut the total amount that you pay over time by like 2/3. And if you agree to these terms, we'll enroll you, we'll help you set up a budget, we'll give you advice as you pay those things off, and you'll end up paying back a lot less than you would otherwise. And we typically see that when you have less than 10,000 in unsecured debt, that's a better option. And it doesn't usually require you to have the same credit hit that you would have through bankruptcy. So if that's something that's interested to you, you can go to upsolve.org and you can take our free screener. You can see based on all the debt you have if bankruptcy is a good fit. And if it isn't based on the amount, we'll actually be able to make a free referral to a company called Cambridge Credit Counseling, who will do those assessments and help you decide if a debt management plan or bankruptcy is a better fit for you. I think I covered everything in that question, George. Is there anything I missed?
I think that was an expert answer there, Ben. Covered everything. Folks, I put upsolve.org into the link as into the chat here as a link if you want to click that and try out that free assessment. That all sounds good. And then Linda, right, so you have lots of options. You have lots of options, Linda. Just laying out some options on the field here, right? So we have bankruptcy chapter 7, you have bankruptcy chapter 13,
Mhm.
bankruptcy chapter 7 discharges all of your debts. You have chapter 13 where you get onto a payment plan.
Mhm.
You have debt settlement options, right? There's like debt settlement
Yep.
firms where they can enroll you in a plan to do all of these 20 debts that you have. Um, you have Solo Settle, which is Solo's product where you can connect with the collector and get a resolution. If you're being sued for the debt, you can use Solo Suit to respond to the lawsuit, get that filed. You have credit counseling, like Ben was talking about. There's lots of credit counselors out there. Cambridge
Mhm.
is a large one that Upsolve partners with, I believe.
Mhm.
Um,
We do.
and then you also have debt consolidation or like refinancing, right? So you could try to get a personal loan
Mhm.
at a lower interest rate than all these other debts, and then use that to pay off all of these debts, and then pay
Yep.
off just one payment over time. That's something that is also available to you. Those are some of the main big options. Um,
Yeah.
Ben,
And
how does Linda get back on the right track on credit, just
yeah.
generally? Maybe like put these debt resolution options aside. How does somebody in
Yeah.
your spot just get back into the right track on her credit score?
It's definitely a challenge, Linda, when you have to live off of your credit cards to survive. Like I know that can be a really, really tricky situation. So what I would suggest you do, and there are resources that you can find online. Google if there are any cash benefits or anything that you're available for or eligible for. No shame in those at all. Like I ended up on food stamps when I was struggling with debt, and it was something that I never saw for myself. But again, that is a program that is there to help you when you're struggling. And it's important to take advantage of all the things that you can take advantage of as you kind of dig yourself out. Now, once you get out of debt, the good news is you're going to be paying a lot less interest on those credit cards, and that's money that's back in your pocket that you can use to cover your expenses. Beyond that, there are things that like skills training programs that are often free. There's a nonprofit that we partner with called SkillUp, SKILLUP. Love those guys. They have programs that'll say, okay, what skills does Linda have right now? Where could she go based on her interests and abilities? And what free resources can we provide to her so that she can skill up towards those jobs? And now let's actually connect her to those higher paying roles. And it's really for you, Linda, I'd imagine similar to what it was for me. One thing at a time. Get out of debt, then figure out how to rebuild your credit, then figure out what benefits might be available to you while you wait to get higher income. Now that you have all of that stress off of your shoulders, right, like that debt monkey off your back, you'll be surprised how much easier it is for you to find better paying work because you don't have to worry quite as much.
That's for sure. Right. And a crucial piece of the puzzle is definitely finding a way to increase your income oftentimes.
Mhm.
And we really see that happen, right? We see people
Mhm.
who have had, moderate income, and then things go
Yep.
south. They lose all of their money. They lose everything.
Yep.
We talked with one person last week, sued for 600 or $400,000,
Oh, wow.
and then
That's a
they're
lot.
able to come back. People are able to
Yep.
come back. They're able to
It's
rebuild,
amazing.
bounce back. Yep,
Yep.
people
I,
are resilient.
I had a really good friend the other day, actually similar situation to me, right? Like somebody that had started a company that had fallen apart, and he finally just had to say, like, I can't do this on my own. And he told me after he filed bankruptcy, because he worked with us on this, he said, it's amazing to me how much easier it is to make good financial decisions now that they actually matter, right? Like before, if I decided not to go to Starbucks today, well, what did it matter, right? Like I'm already so far in debt that it doesn't, really add or subtract. But now that I'm out of debt, and now that I sort of have like this pride in, okay, the money that I save puts me in a better position, it makes it so much easier to make good decisions. And then you have so much more confidence. And now he actually was able to go back and start a company that he couldn't start before because he was so stressed out, and he's doing great. And that happens all the time. I hear that with the 18,000 plus people that we help all the time, that they go back to school, they get better jobs, and they're just much happier financially.
Oh, nice. We have a question from Jeff in California.
Mhm.
I was sued by Sattel and Hammer for 8,000 on behalf of Discover. Uh, thanks for putting it all there in the first sentence there, Jeff. Love that. I lost my job a year ago. I filed an answer. They made me a discounted offer, which I could not afford 4 months ago. We have a case management meeting in court in 2 weeks. The plaintiff filed a court-required alternative dispute resolution document yesterday and asked the court to set a court date for 120 to 160 days into
Mhm.
the future,
Yep.
but did not select any ADR.
Mm.
I need to file the same by tomorrow, but not sure what to do. Should I
Mm.
do mediation or arbitration?
Mm.
I'm leaning towards selecting mediation since it is not binding. What will the judge do if I select mediation and the law firm selected no ADR? Thanks.
Sounds like a good George question.
Sounds like a good short question. Yep, happy to answer that, Jeff. Uh, so just recapping some of the details here, right? So you've been sued for 8K. This is from a credit card with Discover, Sattel and Hammer, now the law firm on the case. I want to point out Solo maintains good relationship with many of the collectors, including Sattel and Hammer, trying to make it easier for consumers and collectors to get together and resolve these cases with an ideal settlement as fast as possible for both sides. So now you're in this case. You use Solo to respond and file an answer, and the court is asking you all to select ADR. Yeah, so ADR is very common in California. ADR means alternative dispute resolution. When I was at BYU Law School, I was actually lucky enough to go out to California, visit San Francisco with one of the top judges of the state, and he told us all about the ADR system in California. He had largely set up the arbitration system there, and he loved it, which I think is a great thing. And it is a beautiful thing. So when you're in court, you have a few options, right? If you don't do anything to resolve, you're just going to go to trial before a judge, and then the judge is going to do a winner takes all verdict or ruling, where the judge will either say that you have to uh, pay everything or you're going to pay nothing, right? So it's like usually a risky situation going to court. And then uh, besides going to court, since they have too big of a caseload and they want to decrease the number of cases, like going
Mhm.
to a judge and taking up all that time, they're offering arbitration or mediation. Arbitration is kind of like one step down from court, where instead of going before a judge, you're going to go before an arbiter, and the arbiter still will do a winner takes all situation, like ruling. Um, but it's a little bit more low key. Rules are less intense, etc. And then mediation is a step down from that. Mediation is like more low key than arbitration. You'll just go before a mediator, and then it's non-binding usually, where you can enter in mediation, and then the mediator will try to get a resolution that works for both parties. It's not a winner takes all situation. And looks like my camera's having some fun autofocus stuff. Um, so then it's not a winner takes all situation, and the uh, mediator will draft a contract at the end and ask both parties to agree to it. So if I'm in this situation, you have $8,000 on the line, I would probably go for mediation, actually. I think would actually be probably the nicest outcome. If you agree that you like, had this credit card and you owe the debt, you're probably going to lose in court, and you're also probably going to
Mhm.
lose in arbitration. Uh, some people try to use like arbitration as a means to jam or like block the collector, which is usually oftentimes just like delaying
Hmm.
collections, or like trying to win on a technicality, quote unquote. Whereas mediation, you're more likely to be able to get onto like a payment plan that might actually work for your budget and pay back the debt that
Hmm.
you might owe in this situation. So Jeff, that's probably what I'd move for is select mediation, and then that's going to get scheduled like 120 days out into the future. So what I'd do before then is get on to solo settle, make an offer to the collector, and try just to settle it yourself. And like settlement is really like the purest form
Hmm.
of ADR. You don't need a mediator, you don't need an arbiter, you don't need a judge. You can just settle it with them through Solo. That is the rundown. Oh, needed myself a glass of water
That's, that's how
today.
it goes. I just realized I'm drinking a liquid death and it looks like I'm drinking a beer. So for the audience, this is water. It sounded like Brandon had a caller calling in.
Yes, we have a caller, I believe.
All right, I'll start talking, and then if the caller joins, they can jump in. So Jeff Sartier, excuse me, Saphir asked a question about mortgage. I answered it in chat, but just so people hear it, Jeff said, "Hey, bankruptcy. What happens if I have a home with a mortgage?" Um, you can definitely file bankruptcy when you own a home. The challenge is going to be that the equity or the portion of the home that you actually own, so the portion that you've paid off, is potentially at risk where the trustee in the case could take that, sell it, pay your creditors. Now, that very rarely happens, and a lawyer can help you figure out how to prevent that from happening by using what's called an exemption. And many people have their full equity protected. So, not a reason not to file bankruptcy. I dropped a link in the chat if you want to talk to a lawyer that is expert at helping you protect your home in that process. That link can get you connected for a free consultation.
Fantastic. We have a question from Nicola in Illinois. Hello. What is the chance to settle debt with the banks when every card was paid on time and current? We're talking about 7 to 8 cards and a deep hole of debt.
Hmm. Yeah. Can you run me through that one more time? Cut out for just a second.
So he's saying, what is the chance to settle debt with the
Hmm.
banks when every card was paid on time and current? We're talking about 7 to 8 cards and a deep hole of debt.
Oh, I have thoughts about this. I want to hear yours first, though, George.
Uh, I was a little bit confused when I first read it. I guess
Yeah.
wasn't sure why he's trying to settle if everything's
Yeah.
paid and on time and current.
Yep.
Um, but I suppose Nicola, right? You're saying because you can have a lot of credit card debt and still be paying on time and be current if you're just letting the balance roll over. I think my
Mhm.
first take, Nicola, is try your hardest. Everyone listening, right? Try your hardest to not carry over any balance on your credit card, right?
Mhm.
Best way if you have credit cards, best way to treat them is as a debit card
Mhm.
as much as you can.
Mhm.
Where if you have $1,000 in your bank account, you can put $1,000 on your credit card,
Mhm.
But if you have $1,000 in your bank account, you can't put $5,000 on your credit card just because
Mhm.
the limit is a 5,000. And make sure that you pay off the full balance of your credit card at the end of every month, so you aren't treating it, so you aren't using like the personal loan feature of the
Mhm.
credit card.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great point. So you're usually not going to be able to settle if you're on time. Like it's going to be tricky to get a bank to agree to, let you pay them less if you've been paying them what they were asking for the whole time. So settlements usually are most effective when you are behind and when you've been behind for a while. So like close to like 180 days. Um, I actually, Nikolai, it's interesting hearing you say this. You're in almost the same situation that I was in. I had a lot of debt. I was current on all of it. But what I realized was that if I didn't get rid of the massive interest payment, there was never any way I was ever going to be able to pay it off. Even less so, like never any way that I was ever going to actually like be able to save money and move up economically. And I was looking at my prospects and I was saying, okay, I'm an Uber driver right now. I can't work in the industry that I'm trained in because of what happened with my former company that failed, and I can't go back to school because I can't afford to do that, and I can't take enough time off from Uber driving 60 hours a week to even go to school. Like, what do I do? All the payment plans that I looked at for Chapter 13 bankruptcy and even for debt management wouldn't make sense because they were going to take me 2, 3, 4 years before I was going to be able to afford to get an education to move myself up. And so bankruptcy actually was the only way that I could get out from under the fact that almost my entire income was going to my interest payments. Like I was making around $3,000 a month and I was paying probably 2,200 in interest payments on an average month, and then living on my credit cards and food stamps to cover, the rest of my expenses, and then covering my rent out of the last of that. So there was no world where I was ever going to get out from under that without bankruptcy. And a lot of people are in that same position. So if you are looking at this and you're saying, I'm on time, but being on time isn't good enough because I'm never going to get out from under this, that's where you can be in a situation where bankruptcy might make sense for you. And I'm fairly confident that settlement is not going to make sense for you in that situation.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, we definitely wouldn't encourage anybody to start defaulting on their credit cards just to get a settlement like 8 months down the road.
Mhm.
That's not a good situation to be in. Okay, we have TC who is calling in live. TC, we're
Love it.
gonna
Hey,
plug you in
TC.
now.
Hey, how's it
What's
going?
what's happening?
What's up, man? Good to see you.
All right. So my thing is, I'm kind of in the same situation as Ben. Um, I'm an entrepreneur, but yet last year I took a big hit
Mhm.
financially and basically maxed out
Mhm.
2 credit cards. Well, 3 credit cards, but one of them I'm on a payment plan.
Okay.
Um, I have one right now where I am being sued,
Mhm.
and I have to respond to them by the end of the week. So that's how I've kind of found you guys by just doing some online research,
Mhm.
um, and I'm also using the tool to help me, write my answer.
Awesome.
But yeah, so just like, what do you see next steps? Because this
Mm.
is this is new to me. I'm pretty responsible guy. Like I take care of my responsibilities, but this
Mhm.
is new for me to navigate.
Yeah. George, you want to start that? We'll 1-2 punch it. I think you
Yep, a
might be
couple
muted.
questions for
Yeah.
you, TC. Uh, yeah, what's your business?
So I am a digital strategist. So I basically create branding and websites for companies.
Cool.
Help them scale.
Nice. Okay, digital strategist. So you operate as a freelancer for companies?
Yeah, freelancer or like a white label contract.
Cool.
Sweet. Great. How's the AI working for you? Using lots of AI
It's
these days?
it's it's I'm still using it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still learning. So
Yeah.
it's
Uh-huh.
it's yeah.
Nice.
I'm
Okay.
learning it because what people say, um, those who know how to use AI will be the ones who keep their job. So
Yep. I agree.
Yep, that can be a great tool for you. Cool. And that's your main employment. How
it is.
much debt do you have altogether?
So debt altogether, I think rounded off, including car note, would be about 75.
Okay.
And what's your business able to bring in? Like,
I'm making around, I say right under 50.
Good for you. It's hard to get to that on your own business.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing it?
About 5 years now.
Okay.
But it's hit or miss. Honestly, I'll be honest, it's hit or miss.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to definitely look at contracts, RFPs and stuff
Sure.
to bring in more.
how is your legal foundation? Are you formed or are you operating as a sole proprietorship?
Solo, yeah.
So you don't have an LLC?
Well, I do have an LLC, yes.
Uh,
Does the
uh,
debt belong to the business or to you personally?
To me personally.
Okay. Got it.
you do have any business debt as well, or has everything just been through you personally?
It's just personal, yeah.
But the debt is to cover business expenses, or is it just like living expenses and stuff?
Living expenses.
So you basically went through a period where there wasn't much income, much business for
Yeah.
the business.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is that right? Yeah. And that was last year?
Yep. Last year, kind of had to pay rent
Yeah.
by credit card. So
They seem to like you doing that, landlords. So yeah, I feel
Yes,
you.
for sure. Got to do it. Got to do it.
yeah.
Okay. Well, so step number one is to respond to the debt lawsuit, right? Have you used Solo to do that already?
Yep, I am. Yep.
Okay, nice. Great. Yep, fantastic. Yep, so that's on the way. So, right, so you generated the answer with our software, and then the document will be filed in court for you and sent to the collections attorney for you.
Mm-hmm.
Then TC is still with us?
Lost his video. Oh, there he is.
You're back.
Sorry about that. Hold on a second.
Oh,
I got
there
a
you go.
phone call.
Oh, good. And then, yeah, Ben, you go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, congratulations on doing the hard thing, which is talking about this and not sticking your head in the sand, because that's what I did for a long time. It's what a lot of people do, and it's the
Can you
people
hear me?
who are not. Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can't hear you. Hold on.
Okay.
Oh,
I'll
I
wait.
lost your
I'll
audio.
wait.
No.
I'll wait. You're good. No worries. We can wait for you for a second. So I'll just say while we wait for TC, it's really hard to admit that debt is holding you back, but it's the first thing you have to do to get out from under your debt. And so I love when people like TC are willing to talk about it. Responding to that debt lawsuit, to George's point, is the most important thing, because that is what the hairiest, nastiest problems could come from. You could absolutely get out from all of that credit card debt through a bankruptcy proceeding. If you have money to settle the debt, that could potentially be an option for you if you are behind on it. TC, I'm having flashbacks. The desk that I'm looking at is a desk that I had when I filed bankruptcy. So I feel like you and I are connected. But yeah, so bankruptcy could absolutely be an option for you to get out from under that. My question, TC, if you can hear me, is what are you paying in interest on a monthly basis right now? Because that'll most help me figure out if bankruptcy could potentially be a good fit for you. Are you able to hear me? But yeah, so bankruptcy could absolutely. No. Okay. Let me throw it. Do you want to throw it in the chat? What are you paying in interest? Brandon, are you able to ask TC in the chat? Maybe we can answer him that way.
Help me figure out if bankruptcy. So sorry, I lost audio on my phone. I have you on my iPad.
We got you.
I'm trying to get the audio back on my phone on the device that I'm
no
talking
worries.
to you. So I'm sorry.
I can hear you. Can you hear us? Sounds like it might be a little delayed.
Brandon, are you able to ask?
Hey, let's do this, Brandon. It seems like we might not be able to get audio from TC. Do you want to send TC the YouTube and we can talk to him in the chat there? I just feel bad. I don't want to don't want to not answer his questions.
All right. Yeah, go ahead and answer his question as best you can here, Ben. And I'll put it into the chat form.
So if I have $75,000 in debt and I'm making $50,000 a year, here's how I would think about this. I've got about $4,000 a month coming in. I would take my rent. I would take my food, like not like all the money I spend on restaurants, but like how much my food actually costs for me to eat, my clothes, other essentials. I'd subtract that monthly and be generous on it, right? Like, don't say, hey, I spend $100 a month on food, because no one does. No one can live that frugally. Get a good baseline of what your essentials are, subtracted from your take-home income, and then say, okay, how much is left over? My guess is, in Brandon's case, it's probably about $2,000 maximum. And then I would look at my interest payments, and I would say, monthly I'm paying interest on $75,000 in debt. It's probably close to $2,200, right? So like I'm probably spending more on interest than I can afford to spend based on my income. And that's a good sign for you that bankruptcy might be the thing to get you out from under that debt. Good news with that, if you do have lawsuits ongoing, filing bankruptcy stops all of those lawsuits within reason. It stops most of them. It stops collection activities against you while the bankruptcy is being processed, and it shouldn't affect your ability to have a business in the future. I was able to start a business again within a month or two of filing bankruptcy, and I was able to sustain that business because I didn't have that monthly drag on my income from my interest. But Brandon mentioned too, like, bankruptcy is not for everybody. Some people really, whether for their upbringing or just who they are, need to take accountability for their debt and pay it off. That can be a world where something like debt management or Chapter 13 bankruptcy, where you get on a payment plan, can be a better fit. So Brandon, or anybody like Brandon who has a question like that and says, I don't know if this is for me, upsolve.org. We have a free screener that'll help you figure out which debt relief option makes the most sense, whether that's debt management, settlement, or bankruptcy. And we can connect you with resources that you can talk to figure that out after you go through that tool. Thanks for the question, Brandon. Huge admiration for you. Oh, sorry, not Brandon. I apologize. I've been saying Brandon the whole time. Oh my goodness. TC. Thanks for the question, TC. And thank you for being so willing to share your story with everybody. That's really important for people to do. And I am so sorry for calling you Brandon. Brandon is our admin who's tirelessly answering questions in the background.
No problem. I appreciate you for answering that question. That really helps.
Of course. Happy to help, man. And shoot me an email. I'm always looking for creatives. So you can email ben@upsolve.org. Happy to talk.
All right.
Will do.
If anyone is watching, hire TC.
Exactly.
Yes.
Hire
digital Cardinal Creative.
Hire TC.
Digital strategist needs. Where can people find you, TC?
Yep. My Instagram is Carnell, Carnell Creative, or my website, carnellcreative.com.
Fantastic.
All right, we're going there right now.
Thank you. Best
nice
of luck.
meeting you, TC. Take care.
Thank you so much. Nice meeting you guys.
All right. Hoping TC.
I like the Carnell website. It looks good.
Looking pretty good.
It looks good. Yeah.
Nice. Love it. I have and folks, so this is the debt hotline. If you have a question, call in at 801-613-8181. We're still going to be taking live questions here just for a couple more minutes, probably.
Looks like Rufino Mendiola had a question. I don't know if you saw that one in there.
Yep. Let's go ahead and take a look. Can I file bankruptcy in one state and then accept a job in another state?
Yes. It doesn't matter where you file and where you are after you file, as long as two things are true. You're eligible to file in that state, which usually depends on where you are a resident for the 6 months prior. So as long as you are currently considered a legal resident in that state and have been for at least 6 months, don't quote me on 6 months. My brain is kind of melted right now for some reason. Our tool will help you figure out what the actual timeline is. You can file there. If you leave the state, that's generally not a problem. Most states now have online 541 meetings, which are when you meet with your trustee to go over your finances. And if you are, in another state for your job and you have a remote meeting, you can hop on that meeting and take that remotely. Now, if you have a state or a trustee that requires in-person meetings, there's a chance you would need to come back to go to court for that trustee meeting. Don't worry about that meeting. They're really simple. Trustees are usually very nice. They're not gotcha questions. You're just going through what you put on your forms when you filed. And that would typically be the only time that you actually have to go to court. So you can go right back to your new state where your job was. But yeah, it shouldn't be a problem, Rufino.
Fantastic. I'm kind of surprised that question's asked. Is that a thing that people are concerned about? Like, why wouldn't you be able to get a job?
I think a thing that people often think of is like, it's kind of what you said, like, can I get a job after I file bankruptcy? Which definitely you can. Like most employers, with the exception of people that have like financial responsibilities or some like government jobs, are not even going to run the kind of background check that would find a bankruptcy. And so they don't care. Bankruptcy records are public, but most people don't look at them. And if you're worried about friends and family looking at your bankruptcy records, you might need different friends and family. Because I don't know the last time I looked up my friends or family's bankruptcy records. So you should be able to get a job. And the other part of that, which is, can I actually... I lost my train of thought. I was going to answer a second part of that question, but I don't remember what it was. So it shouldn't be an issue for you, Rufino.
Ben, I do look up people's lawsuits from time to time.
George is weird, though.
Just a weirdo. I got that access. Every now and then.
Yeah,
I'll just
exactly.
Why
exactly.
Not? Right. More interesting than Facebook, for sure.
That is more interesting than Facebook.
Just seeing the lawsuit stream on Utah databases. And I will say, Rufino, as an employer, I certainly have never considered if one of our employees has filed for bankruptcy. Like, don't care at all if somebody's filed for bankruptcy. Yeah. We definitely do background checks, but bankruptcy is not a consideration.
We have 4 people on our team now who have filed, and 2 other people with family members that have. Like, it's the thing that's the most shocking to me is once people start talking about it, like TC did, you realize like almost everyone has some degree of debt burden and anxiety, or like tons of people have filed and just don't talk about it. And I'm all for reducing that shame. Let's talk about bankruptcy.
Yeah, I mean, certainly as the founder of Solo, I have debts that are in collections from time to time, as do like a third of the U.S. adults at any point in time. Not because I am indolent in paying debts, but simply because some debts are impossible to pay until they're in collections. Right? The story I go back to is in our second child, right? We had a child, went to the hospital, went to like a great hospital, spoke with the head of the billing department for the hospital before we checked out of the hospital and said, I want to make sure that we pay all of our debts. Please make sure that all of our bills are sent to us and that we can pay all of them. Like, here's like our phone number, here's our email, here's our address. She confirmed, yes, I will make sure all of the bills are sent to you. And then, needless to say, 6 months later, we have a $40 bill in collections, medical debt collections that we'd never seen. It definitely never was sent to us. There was no way for us to pay that debt. We never received it. And then we wrapped it up after the fact.
Yeah, happens a lot. And I just shared a resource in the chat too, if you're struggling with medical debt, because a lot of people are. A lot of people don't realize this, but most hospitals are nonprofits and are required to negotiate down your medical bill amounts, and are required to help you enroll in what's called charity care in some instances, where you can get significantly lower payments than what they billed you for. So you reminded me, George, that that's another way that you can often get out of the most common debt people have.
Fantastic. All right, folks, we have time for one last question.
I like
question.
I like Mr. Mamu's. Yeah, I was going to say that's a good question.
There you go. Let me go ahead and read it to you. If you're under settlement plan and want to file bankruptcy, what do you do? If you have a house with your spouse, is your house or car underwater? Mr. Mamu, I think you could become a next Dr. Seuss.
I was going to say the same.
Have a little rhyme there, house and spouse.
Yeah,
on the right track.
So you started. It's in settlement. What was in settlement for his plan?
So if you are under a settlement plan, but you want to file bankruptcy, what do you do? So I think he has a house that's underwater.
Yeah.
It sounds like potentially he's on a settlement plan.
Yeah.
His house is underwater. Also, his car is underwater, and he's wondering if he can file bankruptcy at this point.
Yeah. So the settlement plan. I'm curious, George, what you would see a settlement plan to be. I'm wondering if this is a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, or is this a common thing that you see where people end up on like a repayment plan instead of having a flat amount?
Yeah, settlement plan is oftentimes what you will get from solo settle. So you can, if you're being sued or you have a $10,000 debt in collections, you'll get onto a settlement plan to pay it off over like 5 years.
Got it.
So it's kind of like a Chapter 13 bankruptcy without the work of a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Yeah, so you might pay $250 a month over 5 years to pay off the full debt.
And are they asset secured at all typically, or no?
No, it's usually for unsecured
Okay.
credit in our experience. I think you could do that for secured credit as well, but it's usually going to be unsecured.
Yeah. So would that be considered an unsecured debt in and of itself, or if you defaulted on it, would the previous unsecured debts just reappear and continue on?
What do you mean? Is
So I'm
are you asking if they repossessed?
Yeah. So sorry, let me be more clear. So I have a bunch of debt that I get sued for. I get on a settlement plan. That settlement plan has one payment that I make. Let's say a default on that payment. Do the debts that were rolled into the settlement plan individually break out as separate owed debts, or is it just the one debt, and who does it go in collections to?
Yeah. So usually in a settlement plan, the person will be paying individually to each collector. If they're working with a settlement firm, the person will pay into a single account.
Okay.
And then from that account, each collector is paid individually.
Got it.
But as far as the collector is concerned, and as far as like actual functionality, each collector is paid individually. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So it's not like an aggregate settlement plan. In fact,
that makes sense. Okay, so basically, what you would be able to do if you did need to or decide to file bankruptcy is all of that debt that was previously in the settlement plan, if it was unsecured debt, would be able to be discharged through that bankruptcy. The other two things you asked about, your car that you're underwater on and your home. If you're underwater on the car, you have a couple things you can do. You could surrender it in the bankruptcy proceeding, where you don't owe anything. The deficiency on that car would get discharged in the bankruptcy, and then you'd be back to ground zero. If you need the car, and this is actually what I did in my bankruptcy because I was an Uber driver, right? Like if I get rid of my car, I don't have any income, and that's not good. You can do what's called reaffirming the loan, which if you're current on your loan, or you can prove that you would be current on your loan after the bankruptcy goes through, you can ask the judge to let you keep your car, to let that be held off from the bankruptcy and survive the bankruptcy, and then you just keep making payments on it. And it doesn't matter if you're underwater. Now, your house, this is an interesting one. So if you're underwater on your house, I'm assuming this means you have no equity in your house at all. And in an instance like that, you can typically file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, get out from under all of the rest of your debt, and not worry about your house getting sold to pay the trustee, because you don't have anything to sell to pay the trustee. It's underwater. And even if you did, it's typically going to be covered by the homestead exemption in your state that allows you to protect certain parts of your assets. And that's something that a good bankruptcy attorney can help you with. We don't do cases where people own homes, but we can get you connected with an attorney for a free evaluation who can help you figure out how to protect that home in your bankruptcy. But I don't see anything in what you said, Fatin, that would keep you from being able to file bankruptcy. And you asked if they would come to your house. I'm guessing, do you mean like, do they come evict you? The only instance where that would happen was if you had equity, the trustee was selling the house, the court let them sell the house, and now you're being evicted. It's not going to happen in an instance where you don't have any equity, there's no value in the house to the trustee in that bankruptcy proceeding. Thanks for the question.
All right, just wrapping up. One follow-up from Carnell, our man TC. He says, if I have I have one more question. What happens when the law firm does not send you a copy of the summons? I found out that I was being sued because other lawyers saw the case on the public records. Right, so those lawyers are like me, just skimming records just for fun. So TC, unfortunately, this is a situation that we see pretty frequently. Collectors try their hardest to be compliant. Sometimes things fall through the cracks. And in this case, you did not see the summons. Maybe the summons was sent to you. Maybe you accidentally threw it out. Maybe it was handed to someone else at your residence. Maybe it was delivered to your neighbor. Maybe it just was not served in any way at all. All of those things can happen. Unfortunately, it's not usually going to win you the case. So you can, and you probably did, bring this up as a defense in your answer document when you used Solo. And basically, the most that you'll get from a improper service is have the case dismissed without prejudice, at which point the collector would likely refile the lawsuit at some point in time. So you can bring it up. It's not going to win you the case. And it sounds like you did the right thing, right? You paid attention to those notices from bankruptcy attorneys that probably wanted to file bankruptcy for you. And then you filed your response. So usually what we tell people is if you are getting those advertisements from lawyers in the mail that suggest that you've been sued, go ahead and check online. Try to find your court's online docket. Solo has a great resource where you can search all of the dockets across the US, so you can find all of the dockets. And then search your name, pull up your case, and then use that to file your answer document. Because even if you aren't served properly, you can still lose your lawsuit if you do not respond. So that's kind of a crazy situation, but that's the truth. All right, folks, that is our show for today. Thanks for tuning in to the Debt Hotline. This is George, and we've been hearing from our friend Ben Jackson. Ben, thanks so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody, for joining tonight. It was awesome talking with you.
All right, everybody. Always remember that we are here to help you out. You can use Solo to resolve your debt. You can use us to respond to your lawsuit, get your case fully settled, settle any of your other debts, and also get tips on how to rebuild your finances and get out of this position and build your net worth. You can use Upsolve to file bankruptcy. You can do a free Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You can also get directed to Chapter 13 bankruptcy attorneys or credit counseling.
Yes.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody.